Yes, thank you for all attending this week's town hall for the TGM. We have a very pressing announcement. Basically, there is too much shagging going on in the office. The office equipment is not for having sex on. We are grumpy old men and we don't like sex, do we, Farley?
We're not supposed to be characters in this.
You're just called Farley. You're another person called Farley.
Okay, coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course there is the designated love room, which everybody should use, rather than buffing up the common room and the photocopier and other...
And the kitchen. The kitchen is the worst, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's some yogurt, but it's not yogurt.
Yeah. Anyway, next on the agenda, just a reminder, just by the fact that we've all worked here for a long time, that the website is www.thatguys.co.uk. And remember, we're aiming for 100% follows by our own employees on all the socials, at That Guys the Maniac, or one word, lowercase, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that. Farley, but not really the Farley from the podcast.
The other
Farley. Other Farley. Yeah.
Two people called Farley working here. One of them is the talent, the other one is some middle manager.
Oh, you should have gone for the joke. One of them's the talent, the other one's the guy that does the podcast.
Oh.
Right, let's end this awful office charade.
Right.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Forever or just for this episode?
It's not forever.
Okay. Unlike a pet.
Yes, unlike a pet. Yeah.
Like Christmas.
We will put this awful skit down.
Remember, kids, awful premises the podcast series are forever. Not forever.
They're not forever. Yeah. They're going off to a farm.
Yeah. Flush them down the toilet when you're done with them.
Yeah, exactly, and never look back. Never look back. Except we'll just do something equally as shit for our next premise.
I don't know. Last season 1 was good.
Season 1 was good.
If we say so ourselves.
It might be the rose-tinted glasses and all that, but yeah, season 1 was good. We handled that well. We got sponsors.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah,
season 1 of the podcast this podcast is actually quite good, yeah.
The fact that we have a season 2 is remarkable, to be honest. So
I know.
I think we just need to draw more attention to that.
So what are we talking about this week's podcast if the Office meta connection wasn't clear enough?
The Office meta connection was alluding to sex, and apparently we want to talk about sex in games.
Sex in games. So we were talking about sex in games. We're also talking about sexy games. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic is because I find it interesting that there's a lot of sexiness in games with quotes around them. But then also they're explicitly, or very rarely, about actual sex. And that difference between, you can do all kinds of horrible, violent things in video games, and that's fine, and it seems to pass censorship, and is barely commented on, right? There'll be a next new violent game where there's some mechanism for zooming into blowing some guy's eye out so that you see his brain and with his eyes connected, like
visceral gore, but you can't see the right penis.
Yeah, and that's fine because and we'll just get a review about the mechanics in Extreme Sniper 45 is slightly better than the mechanics in the last game.
Extreme
but then
44.
But then you go games don't really do sex particularly well. There are a number of games which kind of have sex as mini games, but it kind of follows the Hollywood I guess tropes of there's going to be a sex scene here to imply that something's important, but
it's titillation versus every single foray into sex in games does feel like it's an experiment of some kind, and I mean, a very good example of that would be the hot coffee, which was abandoned from San Andreas, and it was abandoned because it was weird and awkward. And I feel like, yes, it really would have been.
I think also it would have seriously damaged their chances of publishing the game. Whereas all the other shit you can do to virtual humans is absolutely fine. But then
it's fine to have, like the illusion that you fucked a hooker. Oh, the language.
The main streets of Glasgow. Okay, yeah.
It's fine that the illusion
that you
fucked
paid a sex worker for their services.
Yeah, okay. In a car that you've stolen from a guy and also run him over with.
Yeah, and then got out and stomped on his head lots of times and hit him with a baseball bat.
And then done exactly the same to the hooker as well.
Sex worker.
Sex worker.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a brief side note. Have you read Sarah Pascoe's book, Sex, Power, Money?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
As an extremely sophisticated literate aside. One of the most sophisticated literate ones we've ever had, I believe. Go on.
She actually has a whole section which is dedicated to games and porn. And I think what we are sort of talking about here is, yes, there is sex in games, but there is also a very quick, easy dividing line where it's not sex in games for some kind of narrative, it is just simply porn. So it is basically using games as a interactive sex porn thing, as opposed to, let's say, in Dragon Age you have the narrative where you're able to romance and disappear into a tent with someone, and that I think that's a little different from a game which is, here is anal Angie and here's a bunch of dildos, shove them in her,
Yeah, and I mean there are many explicitly sexy, explicit sex games out there, and that's what I guess it's the difference between saying, well, there are porn films out there and then there are non-porn films. But whereas in its own awkward way, sex is normally a part of. So I was watching Bridesmaids, for example, the other day, and
that's what's her face? Oh god, I can't remember any name. It's all women. Yep.
Yeah. It's all women.
Here comes the misogyny.
Yeah,
Here it comes.
I know. That's how you sum it. It's a very good comedy, but there is a sex scene in that, and of course everyone's wearing their underwear during the sex scene. But
there's also a pooping in the sink scene as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I wouldn't really call that sex, but you do you, I guess.
I did me, yeah.
Yeah, but it's part of the story, right? So if you have a rom-com or any kind of film that's PG, there'll be sex or a sexual relationship that's part of it. And in games, we're not really there yet. It's either kind of some weird, sordid little mini game, or I'm thinking of things like, I think it's Fahrenheit or Indigo Prophecy, where there's an actual press the buttons at those times.
QT sex.
Yeah, QT sex.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Quick time event. Press X to spoof.
Yeah. And it's after the protagonist has died as well, so there's a bit of necro in there.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. And it's just it doesn't seamlessly fit in with the game. It whilst you're banging X rhythmically, you're like, a minute ago, I was pressing X to dodge behind some desks because there's some psychic insects, or press square to go in the toilet and avoid the cops, and now it's some idiot's banging QTE that's put in this game, and it doesn't fit It doesn't feel like a natural part of the game.
X to go in, square to go out. X
Yeah,
to go out.
and for the time, it was one of the earliest kind of mainstream, again inverted commas.
Yeah,
games
mainstream,
that
definitely. Yeah.
had some kind of sex.
It's a AAA title. I think that's where the difference is.
Yeah, it's a game that most people are playing rather than some dirty indie visual novel about some pink unicorn and I don't know, a rainbow walrus that are boning at school or something.
Oh, well, there we go. That's a little quick hint to That Guy's a Maniac the Game, part 4.
Yeah, or any I don't know, 2/3 of visual novels at this point. And it is, for a while there was, particularly thinking back to the console wars, right? And when everyone was, or when the common complaint against Nintendo would be that they don't do mature games, and then you looked at the mature games that were being done on other platforms, and it's comedic, cartoony violence. It's running people over. It's not, despite the mature label and the little rated M for mature content, wasn't really very mature at all.
No.
Childish, like titillating for a 13-year-old boy who's doodling in the back of his notebook about zombies fighting Nazis or whatever, and there's blood everywhere and they cut each other's heads off, but not especially thematically mature or emotionally mature as well, which is a big part of sex and sexuality.
Yeah. So the other side of this is now we actually see a lot more of these mature titles actually on Nintendo's platform, including Switch. We see like Leisure Suit Larry on there, and I mean, does that count? Do we want to talk about Leisure Suit Larry on this podcast?
Well, again, it's just it's a bit
titillation for titillation's sake.
Yeah, or like National Lampoon levels of
sexy thing.
Sex, sexual content in there, and quite misogynistic and degrading.
Yes, 100%. I suppose almost all of them are. Like most games that you see featuring some kind of sexual action is usually doing it to a female of some kind, as opposed to, it's never usually a guy. It's never, these sexy games are not directed towards women either. So there is definitely a misogynistic background in the entire thing. And of course you do have Leisure Suit Larry, and what was that one that Jason had? Lula?
Can't remember.
Oh my god, I'm pretty sure it was Lula or something like that. Basically it was she was on a spaceship and she had to fuck aliens.
Oh god, yeah, I do. Sadly, I do remember that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just games like that exist, and I mean, I don't. Yeah, they're definitely for 13-year-old boys, despite having an 18 rating on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about games which did sexual content in a good way?
Which one? I don't know. I suppose everybody always talks about the Witcher scenes. I've never seen any of them. Have you seen any of them?
I've seen Let's Plays of them, and it seems a little bit too kind of boudoir titillation. Mass Effect, I was going to suggest, as
it's exactly the same as what's it called? Dragon Age. Yeah. It's the BioWare sort of. You romance them, and like I did all of the characters, and that works on 2 levels. I did all of the characters because there was achievements linked to them.
Right.
So you had to,
Is there anything sexier than banging through characters to earn an achievement?
Well, I mean, if you can time, no, I'm not gonna go there to that badoop of the achievement popping up. Yeah, that's pretty sexy. Yeah, look at me get 1,000 on this game. No, it was regimented, and no, it was not even titillating either. It was more fun playing the game rather than doing any of the romance sides of that.
Yeah, we've recently been playing Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Odyssey, which at various moments you can sleep with various characters. It's really romantically signposted with, when you're having a conversation with them, there'll be like a little heart symbol, and then there'll be some heavy flirting, and then it will fade to black and then fade out and be like, oh, I'd like to join your ship crew. After that fantastic banging. They don't say after that fantastic banging. And I think that's still the sticking point.
That's the thing. They should have like the combo system from Devil May Cry, cool banging, awesome banging.
And for me, I think that's kind of where we're stuck for a while. Is I mean, worse than Hollywood, right? Where Hollywood is that kind of you get back to someone's house and then you start kissing, and then it fades to the morning and you're waking up and doing that thing where they get out of bed carrying all the bed covers and then disappearing, and then that's kind of where most of your mainstream games are at, is a fade to black, some smooching noises if you're lucky, and then some Chiva or a health boost.
Yeah, health boost. Yeah, exactly. Oh dear.
Yeah. But what would the future? A good way of incorporating sex into games be?
Well, I mean, when I said the Devil May Cry thing, suddenly my head went off in a crazy direction of, what about a crazy actual game that you're playing, which would be, rather than a narrative. But then I just thought that would just turn into one of these horrible, what we were talking about, like a Leisure Suit Larry or something like that.
Yeah.
An actual sexual conduct which involves, I don't know, matching 3.
Right. Yeah.
Or
a gem lining up mini game.
Yeah, or shooting a bullet hell mixed with, oh wait a minute, yeah, sentimental shooting into it.
Yeah.
No, that's a bit weird. No.
I mean, maybe there shouldn't be a space in games for sex, but I don't feel that, I don't think that's genuine.
I think that's a head in the sand. I think it needs to be broached and approached, and of course with new woke generations and blurring lines of gender and things like that, I mean, changes need to be made on that sort of level as well. I mean, I suppose BioWare, they did quite well because you could have same-sex relationships as well, even if it was with an elf as opposed to a human.
Yeah, or I mean, with Assassin's Creed, if you choose Cassandra, then she can romance all the people that what's his face can romance, men and women. But
so as long as you play as a female character, you're allowed to have male and female relations. Yeah.
No, I think if you play as the male character, you can do both as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I say, because that is another stereotype as well that I'm sure I've seen in games, like, oh, only if you play as female you can, flirt with the females. Like, all right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there were even games which are renowned for their relationship building. So games like Fire Emblem would still kind of lock you out of like, oh no, you can only develop, you can only marry and have a child with this character. Like, it costs you nothing. You've already got the cutscenes there for all the male-female interactions. Just let people do what they want.
Yeah.
Why this hard line? Players can do what they want. Just give them the option rather than deliberately not. I don't know. Maybe we'll get there.
But I mean, that's the thing. Is like if you start blurring the line of what gender each person is, and then like how do you approach a sexual interaction within that game, because like obviously there's different mechanics and things like that as well. So I suppose
I don't know. That's always seemed like quite a weak excuse, given all the kinds of, just think of is a TJM and every game of our generation is a touchstone. Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
And your cast is a man who communicates through a robot, and a vampire, and some thief, and a dog, and some ancient, and games absolutely thrive on, and I think we mentioned this in one of the other podcasts, they absolutely thrive on being able to do and go beyond what we can kind of do in real life. And so much of video games history is really, really queer, in a way that if you were to kind of engage in a community or follow classic discourses around, or should we add a female character to the next GTA, and the kickback from that. It's like, yeah, but look at the history of games and the people who make them. It's all about being yourself, being weird, being wacky, and not really giving a fuck. And then it just seems to across that landscape. But then when it comes to relationships and sex, it seems to revert back to some 1950s America ideal of
you're 100% right. Yeah, it's just like, be wacky, weird, enjoy your alternative lifestyle, but here's some clear-cut vanilla binary.
The elephant with a cow pie head and the tiny lizard man with giant hands. Well, as long as they're different sexes, then you can unlock some fade to black smooching thing. But God forbid we let the cow pie head, pink elephant, and lizard man with giant hands, have sex with each other if they're same sex. There is. We won't do them any justice because we don't play half as many as we should. But you mentioned it earlier. Indie games are really.
There's tons. Like what we talked about with that itch.io, and all of the hundreds of games that they gave out for that. Oh God, I forgot what the charity was.
It was the bundle for racial.
Yes, racial equality, racial justice. Yeah, exactly. And it just gave hundreds, and there was so many that were sort of tagged with that sexual content. But these were stories that were around talking and thinking about sex in that fashion as well. As a medium, people can use games to tell a story, to educate, to enlighten, absolutely. But in the game's mainstream, the chances are you're not going to see these games available on the Switch store or even Steam. It's something you have to seek out more than anything else.
Or many of it. In many ways, it is mirroring film. So I remember having somebody bought me the lesbian film guide many years ago, which was a good read. But at the time, in this entire chunky book, I think maybe there were 3 or 4 actual, open, firmly lesbian stories. All the rest of the films were, there's a subtext or there's an energy. I think I remember, like, Alien Resurrection maybe is one of the films that's in the lesbian film guide, because it's more of a it's more of a subtext, or a glance rather than this is a out and out genuine kind of lesbian love story. I think things are getting there, and
Pause. Alien Resurrection, the one with Winona Ryder?
Yeah.
Who's a robot?
Yeah.
And Ripley, who is half alien?
Yeah. Yeah, some.
And was there some sort of lesbian
there are lesbian themes to it. But that was my point. Is that
Themes?
yeah, in this lesbian film, it was all picking up on these kind of themes because those stories were never told, or if they were, it was always
I get
it was always that she gets fixed in the end, right? Or she's a lesbian until the guy of her dreams comes along. And now things are a little bit better, and that we do have openly gay characters, and that's absolutely fine. You don't have to caveat it, or it's not a phase. But I think video games are where we were, or mainstream video games, I should say, were where we were when the Lesbian Film Guide came out. And so some of these games which go a little bit viral and go nuts on social media for like the lesbian undertones, right? Or so and so's this extremely straight character is a disaster bisexual because they wear a funny coat and have nice hair and things like that. So I think maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll start having these more openly kind of LGBTQ characters, and not in the weird way that is being done at the moment. So one of the team leaders in Pokemon Go is, I think they're asexual or non-binary.
Okay.
In a way that affects nothing, right? In a way that's, they're a character that pops up to evaluate your Pokemon every now and then. So the efforts to be applauded, but how.
If you hadn't told me, I would not have noticed that.
Well, yeah, because also they don't especially, go out of their way to be like, oh, hi, you've got a 2-star Vileplume. By the way, I'm not especially into sexual intercourse with anybody, but that doesn't mean I'm less of a valid person. Which is, it's, okay, you can say that your characters are... I just googled Pokemon Go mystery. That's not helping at all, is it?
I'm currently looking at the gym leaders. And is it Blanche?
Yeah, it's Blanche, yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's definitely a female character, but she's wearing trousers.
Well, I don't know if it would. I don't know if it is.
If they are, yeah. No, I'm pretty... yeah, okay. I might be wrong. I named it like Blanche. Okay, sorry. I mean, I suppose I'm living all these stereotypes.
I mean, maybe I've just made that up. In which case, let's go for it. But I remember there is another...
Pokemon Go San Diego Comic Con reveals that Blanche is female.
It's female?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that...
But it also confirms that Blanche is non-binary.
There we go, non-binary. Sorry, my apologies. Bad I am. There we go. But...
How can she be female? Oh, never mind.
So yeah, non-binary in a game where it has nothing to do with anything. And every now and then there are games which have a big cast of characters. Ooh, did you know this character is gay in a way that doesn't? And I guess that's kind of good because it's it's just saying it's representation and in a game that doesn't feature anything to do with relationships or sexuality, just to say, hey, one of our characters is bar.
I mean, I think we're deep diving into sexuality in games rather than sex in games. And I think that's a completely different issue.
I think it would be a different issue had sex in games been a little bit further along.
I suppose, yeah. But I feel like sexuality is getting better represented in games, and like the choice to be an Animal Crossing character who looks male but can wear a skirt, that kind of thing happens more often. There is the ability to not necessarily stay within the gender constructs, and that's good, that's fine, that's great. But then translating that to a point of physical expression or getting each other off, is there a place for that in games, regardless of whatever orientation you may be? Because I think we kind of, just because it's the same word sex, I think we mixed it up a little bit.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, I guess it is a part of sexual relations and the characters you can flirt with and date with. But despite the openness of the nature of games being that you can do whatever you want, be it wherever you want, there's a lot of actively programming, right? No, these Animal Crossing characters are female, and they are the only ones who can wear dresses, and these characters are male, and they're the only ones who can wear trousers or whatever.
And shoot guns, and all the female ones can only
wear
all of the
and the female characters have one less heart, and they're faster, and
they've got a plus cleaning skill.
And are rocking around in their undies. But let's and then the male characters are wearing jeans and a white t-shirt and has blonde hair and is really good at punching things.
And again, some ridiculous stereotype. Everyone points out the ridiculous stereotypes of women in games. They absolutely, over-sexualized, big busty, and always does the big kicks with the big long legs, and you get to see a bit of camel toe. And then, of course, you've got the reverse stereotype, which is like men are supposed to be great big barrels of muscle, ripped. And I mean, they are both bad stereotypes.
But how would we? Does sex even have a place in games? Or is it just something that shouldn't be tackled by games, or is it not? Because it's a big part of life. It's a big part of the lived experience, and it seems weird that every other aspect of life, and this is where my mind goes straight to Shenmue, like going to a job and playing card games and going to a vending machine is in there. But then this one special secret bit, beating people's head in with a spade, that's also in there. But there's one super secret special bit which makes up most people's lived experience. Just isn't there, or is tackled really, really badly.
You made me think of The Sims when you were describing Shenmue there. And they do Nuki in quite a good way. Because it is part of everyday life. I think what games tend to do is not necessarily mirror or echo life. So, like, if you're playing a massive, expansive JRPG, you're actually playing, these people having an adventure, and there's things that go unsaid or untold that just ends up falling into the realms of fan fiction, as opposed to.
So I think so much fan fiction.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is, like, for sex in games on a storyline level, perhaps it's best that, without trying to cover it up, it's best that things go unsaid, or indeed that you can sort of make your own headcanon around it. Because ultimately, the other end of it is going to be you're holding a vibrating control pad, pressing up and down in R to simulate penetration or grinding in some fashion. And I think that's where it gets kind of ridiculous. Because, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, if you strip anything back, like, I just pressed X to do a massive swirly sword hit, and it didn't kill the enemy, it just knocked a percentage of health off of them. Like I mean, turning that into some kind of sexy game, turn-based sex, I don't know. It's not going to be. I just think it would seem too ridiculous, because there's always a level of fun and funniness in any kind of sexual encounter, and I think it just becomes sterile and weird when you're playing it on a controller.
How is that any different to all the other weird mini games we do to simulate, this is you.
This is you cooking. Yeah.
Cooking. This is you training. This is you leveling up your blah 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 by, having some weird mini game where you're making a curry or throwing ingredients together. I don't know. I'd like to see more of it, and I'd like to see it being less weird, or still there being like a bit of tittering about like, oh, there's sex scenes in this game.
I think it's the nature of the demographic. I mean, like, you still, like, when people are playing games, you still get racial hatred. You still get horrible little kids, that phone people up or call swatting, and like, attempting to address the subject of sex to that kind of audience, I just don't think would work, and it becomes a mob mentality thing as well.
Isn't that just a cop out though?
Why?
Because there are some people who, a vocal minority who overact and are immature and take things out of context. But they do that anyway. I don't think sex scenes or serious sexual content in a video game is gonna, you shouldn't avoid it just because some people might get up in arms with it, because it can also be part of great storytelling, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it does. It deepens your connection to a character in some fashion. Although I would still, I'm trying to think of, like, Silent Hill: The Room. Would that game have been any better
Right.
if when he was going into the bathroom, he was going in to have a little, cheeky little alone time, but instead it's like a possessed ghost floating about. I don't know. Does that perhaps reflect life more realistically? Perhaps. Does it fit into that genre? No. I also don't think that perhaps some kind of sexual content in a squad-based shooter or a match 3 or
no, of course. No,
I don't think it works.
I mean, yeah, but we're not. I'm not saying that you have to add. That there needs to be some, sex mini game every time you complete a Tetris on Tetris.
Maybe
but in the genres
instead of the 4 Tetris.
But in the genres where it's kind of notable for its absence, or in games. I mean, to be fair to Quantic Dream, they do have sex in their games, but in games where you are doing a QTE to brush your teeth in the morning and pour some fucking juice out for your wife or whatever. But then I cited those before as a really bad example.
But I suppose and like.
I mean, unless it's just never going to happen in the same way that you don't really get.
I suppose what this rounds back to, and what I mentioned before, putting sex into video games in that fashion, where it does become a playable, repeatable, doable event, or something similar to that, does it stop being a narrative device, and does it immediately become porn?
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe they should be just kept separate. If you think about film and TV, right, where it gets soft porny at best, but with some exceptions, particularly in European cinema, you don't just have a actual sex scene in the middle of your film that's telling a story.
Yeah,
because I don't know.
I think
humans are so triggered by it, and it's so tied up with the idea of censorship and morality that you have to keep them separate, right? So it'll be a bit of kissing and cuddling and under the covers, and then wake up in the morning rather than just slotting in a proper sex scene into the middle of a film.
But I think the line suddenly becomes drawn because it's interactive. And I think once it becomes interactive...
No, because
you're playing it.
Yeah, but any excuse you can make doesn't really work, because you do exactly that same thing when you're blowing a guy's head off, or setting up a truck in the middle of the highway to blow it up, or to fly your plane into a populated beach. Like, we're more than happy with simulating hyper real, unreal, violent acts.
But I think that's the thing. It's so unreal. Whereas to replicate sex in the same fashion as, I don't know, some kind of Saints Row flying through the sky, kicking a truck, crazy game, cartoony violence, I just don't think it would work in the same way. How do you escalate a sex scene to that kind of cartoony, weird violence?
So we can do it for a dog rapping with an onion-headed guru.
Yeah,
that's fine. We can navigate that through through video games, or
But no, that's my point. Everything is extreme, and everything is over the top or weird or out there. But when it comes back down to the basic primal thrusting and grinding, like how do you make that a gaming spectacular that's fun to play?
But I don't think it has to be a playable thing. There are plenty of things in games we can't play.
Absolutely. Like, if you're talking about just adding cutscenes in, then yes, that is a sensible way to do it. But that doesn't become sex in games anymore. That just becomes a cutscene. And yes, like, I'm sure that can be done, and that could be done better. But I feel like the issue here is not that. It is like, people play games. What you're talking about right there is talking about over the top violence. You're talking about crazy abilities to, kick a train. I don't know why I'm using the same analogy. I don't know why that's the thing. But the point is, that is a playable interactive thing. And if you're going to use that same analogy, then the same thing needs to happen to sex in some fashion. And I think
but I'm saying that we make playable sequences of everything, almost everything else you can think of, except there seems to be this hard line.
But people do it. It is a crass porn game, and I think that's the problem. Is the moment that you cross that line to make it playable, it actually crosses the line to becoming porn.
But is that? I mean, maybe the answer to this is obvious. Isn't that just tied up with attitudes around media and kind of like a society level?
I think it's actually
immaturity.
Yeah. No, I think
when it comes to
an inbuilt horniness. There's just gonna be like sexy things.
I know.
Regardless of gender, background, whatever, people are still gonna go tee because there is always gonna be that funniness around sex, because it's a ridiculous affair, and I think
it is. But I think that's not going to change the more if no one's really trying. And I say no one's really trying. This isn't true.
I think
sure you could go and download 100 games which are simulating sex through gameplay in 100 different ways. Maybe it's obscure, maybe you're having to swim a sperm through some ovaries, or
There's that free game. How do they do it? About the girl with the 2 dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. Yeah, I mean, that is education on a different level, and I think that's fine. But most people who would be playing that game don't necessarily need to be educated, especially not in the climate that we are in, where porn is so accessible to anyone. I would think that the dialogue that you're looking for to perhaps make sex less of a schoolboy tee hee hee, and I shouldn't use schoolboy, school person. That immature giggling. I don't think games is the right medium for that.
Yeah, you might be right. I think it's totally fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, like it's totally so easy to be so easy to be on the outside looking in, thinking, why is this so ridiculous?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, if you were placed in front of a game where you got a sex scene, you would do exactly what everybody else on this planet would do. You wouldn't appreciate the graphics, you wouldn't be appreciating the music, you wouldn't be appreciating the mood. You would be going tee hee hee.
No,
boobies and
no, it really wouldn't. I think it's only because it's so rare, that would even be the case. And then just between us, we can think of 100 kind of weird, different, wacky things that you do, and you don't even care anymore. Like when you're in Fallout, you're like, oh, do we blow up that city because then I get some bonuses?
Go on a rampage, kill every guard. Possible.
No, whatever that city's called, where you have to decide, like, do you blow up the nuke? Yeah, nuke.
Oh no, God damn, it's not Nuka-Cola. City of Atom? But it doesn't matter. That first one, yeah. And
you're not even thinking about it anymore, right? It's just become so normal. You're just, you're sitting there slack-jawed with your, controller barely moving. Like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do this, and all those people died, and that's absolutely fine.
Well, I mean, I suppose the other thing is, like, if you were to be, okay, you're playing Fallout, right? And that exactly what you just said there. That's fine, but it's not titillating. You're not getting any kind of arousal or feeling or anything like that.
Yeah,
but you would get that. But that's the thing. It's like if you were to play a Fallout version where there was, sex and hookers and all this sort of stuff going on, there would, on some level, regardless of who you are, you're gonna be, this is sexy. And I think that's where that becomes that level of, is it porn, is it not? How do you approach those feelings? And games is not the medium for that. I think, in all honesty, I think you want to go into a game to actually shut off, zone, focus on something else.
No, come on, man. Come on. Cop out. Stop making excuses for everybody.
I'm not making excuses.
You are.
What I'm saying is, you don't necessarily want a game where you're getting a boner at the same time, or
why not? That's fine. We play games to be scared. We play games to be excited. We play games to socialize. We play games. Why ring fence? Being aroused or feeling sexy or being interested is like, oh no, we can't do that. But here we go. Let's have a game where you, I don't know, have to photograph creepy ghosts.
Okay, right. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I'm going to go back to my previous point.
Yeah,
go on then. Was when you're playing a game, you do enter.
Yeah.
You do enter a point of flow. That's the whole point of games, is to try and get you into that point where you're focused, you're doing your thing, you are, attempting to get high scores, you are, whatever you're doing, whatever actions you're doing. Now, if those actions
rolling a ball to pick up bigger and bigger things.
Yeah, exactly. But if you change that action to be something that's a bit more titillating, or arousing. I think that pulls you out of flow. I don't think the two can exist in the same.
Mate.
I don't think they can exist in the same plane. If anything, sex is a distraction from flow.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay. Well, let's agree to disagree.
Yeah, I think we need to agree to disagree. But I think
perhaps we should just treat everything like Pokemon. We chuck them in the daycare center, and then a nice man or woman will say, "Hey, something weird happened. We don't know, even though it's the 4,000th egg that you've hatched. Still don't really know what happens when we put them in that room together.
Yeah.
Have an egg with some genetic components from each of the parents that you've specifically put in and steered with the held items that they've got.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe in 20 years' time, we'll get the
We'll get the
version.
mini game. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think that's all you want. Instead of puffin making, you want to get Pokemon doing it. You want to see the mechanics of Skitty and Will.
I want Game Freak to spend thousands of hours working out how every single combination of male, female, and genderless.
Oh man, they could have their own move sets, like the the competitions.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I'm not going down this road. I get where you're going. I'm sure everybody, all of our readers, get where you're going with this as well.
Yeah. I mean, also, like I say, apologies to all those crazy, wonderful, beautiful games explicitly about sex, which are out there, which we've not played because we only play WoW, Resident Evil, and Pokemon.
Yeah. Although I did buy a new game.
Go on.
Well, maybe we should save it for what are you playing.
Is it a sexy game?
No. It's probably categorized as a very, very male teenage boy game. I got the Guardians of the Galaxy game.
Why are you bringing that up on this podcast?
I'm not sure. Anyway, let's end this podcast, and I think we should revisit this sex in games because there's been a good argument.
Yeah, it has, and I think you're right in that this is why we've avoided things, but also I think there's a bigger level of like, but why are we avoiding those things when we tap into so many other properly fucked up and not natural and things that nobody experiences.
Well, that's the thing. You just said it. You know, it's like because we touch into all of these naturally different fucked up things. Why bring something as down to earth? And I don't know.
Yeah, but we did. It crosses the full spectrum, right? It crosses the full spectrum of games where you play as an NPC in a shop selling people items or papers, please. I'm
sure these games do exist in some fashion. They're just not gonna. I think what your argument is why is it not mainstream? And I think it's because we're not ready.
Or because it's not. Yeah, because it's not ready, and but then I think the reason
attitudes haven't got there yet. You know, we've still got other battles.
I know it's pathetic. But yeah, I think you're right. All right, that guy's sex maniac.
Why didn't he bite me? I wanted him to bite me. I like a bit of pain.